Hi, I'm Julie with Green Acres Nursery and Supply, and for me it's the month of January, which means there are a lot of things that you get to do in our area that are going to make a huge difference. There's some prevention and there's some great planting times too. First of all, know that there are tons and tons of bare roots out right now. You can get them in the fruit trees and in the roses. We'll also have fun things like strawberries, rhubarb, and asparagus. Also sold as bare roots, which means that they're not really actively growing. And when that's the case, you get away with a lot of behavior that you would not get away with when you have an actively growing plant. So if you have something at home that needs to go in a different spot, now's the time to transplant, because it's kind of sedate. You're not going to cause them a lot of harm or a lot of setback by moving that plant now, as opposed to when it was in full bloom and flower. You can cause a lot more damage and some shock. So look to do some planting and definitely transplanting this time of year. When you look at our website or at the Dave Wilson website, who we get our fruit trees from, you're going to find some great information on how to prune first year, second year, third year, and on. What's really nice and new about pruning with the fruit trees is the height. It turns out that you can actually grow 4 fruit trees in the same size that we use, same area that we used to grow only 1. And we do that by pruning at least twice a year. When you first get a brand new fruit tree, and it's not a compound, it's one type of fruit on it, you're going to give it a serious pruning right before you even put it in the ground. Right down here, there's a little bit of a wound, kind of a scar, part of it sticking out. That is the graft. And you want to make sure that you're not cutting below the graft, because with some trees you'll find it up a little bit higher. So look for that nodular little mess. And what they talk about is pruning to knee height. I know, you've got this beautiful thing and it's 4 feet high, but we don't want it. Because when you prune like this, you're going to get a tree that's 8 to 10 feet high, and the fruit is where you can get it. If you start with this, you're going to have a tree that's 15 to 20 to 25 feet high. It takes up all the room in your backyard and you can't get to the fruit. So we're going to manage the size. And the first cut is that initial one. Going up about 24 inches, you're going to cut, and you're going to cut at an angle. If you cut like this, water can sit on top and rot out. So you want to cut at an angle so that when it rains, the water goes right off. You see these little protuberances here, right here? You want to leave those behind, and you want to cut right above it. When you get to our website and you look in the resources in the Learning Center, you're going to see really specific instructions and good pictures to tell you exactly what the cut should be and how far away from that node. Then, to keep it of a regular size, 8 to 10 feet, not a monster, you're going to do pruning in the summer as well. Usually we just do dormant care pruning, but not these days. It's a brand new thing and it's working out great. The other thing that's really hot right now this time of year in January is bare root roses. After you've chosen your bare root and you've gotten it home, the most common questions are, can I plant it right away? Can I leave it in the pot for a while? And the answer is yes and yes. You can leave it in this pot for quite a while because we've carefully put some soil in there so those roots don't dry out. Monitor the moisture level. If it doesn't rain, you need to make sure you've added water to this. The pot is decomposable, but it takes a long time for it to break down. So again, in our instructions in the Learning Center on our webpage, they talk about making cuts on all 4 sides, and especially removing this bottom. If you don't make those cuts, this won't break down in time for the roots to spread and you'll start some girdling. So yes, it's decomposable, but it takes a lot longer than you think, so cut it up. If you want to put it in a pot, you can. If you want to put it in the ground, you can. Just remember, the size pot tells you what kind of planting hole you're going to do. Twice as wide, just as deep. Backfill with at least half your native soil. Amend it with whatever came out of the pot, and add some compost or planting mix to make up the difference. Then, these guys are not that picky. It's going to be great. However, a lot of them don't have a huge top the first year, which means you're really open to some damage on the trunk. Protecting it from sunburn is going to help a whole lot. This is the paint that we sell here at the nursery, and from the band you can tell what color brown it's going to be. We're all used to seeing the orchards that have the white paint on the trunk. Turns out it can be almost any color you're fine. And once you put it on that trunk, it's going to protect it from sunburn and from borer beetles. And it's really easy to hurt that bark, so protecting it with the paint makes a huge difference. When you put in your bare root fruit trees, you might not get any fruit the first year, and if you do, I need you to clip it off because he doesn't have strong enough branches to support it. However, after years 2, 3, and 4, if you're not getting really good production, we need to revisit how you prune during the winter. So if you left too much material on, he's spending too much energy on all of those branches and you need to do more thinning. If you are watering right next to the trunk, your plant is going to sacrifice fruits and flowers almost every time. So continue to water further and further out from the tree as he grows. Suppose it's not a bare root. Suppose it's a citrus that's in full, it's got lots of fruit on it and lots of leaves. Can you prune that? And the answer is no. If you prune it and we get a freeze, it's going to freeze further and further into the interior of this plant, causing more significant damage. So now is not the time to prune because pruning always induces new growth. You're going to open them up to more freeze and you're going to make baby little leaves that are really tender and sensitive, and those are going to be the first things to freeze off. Then you trim off the ickies and you have another freeze, trim off the ickies, have another freeze, and you're left with a niblet of a plant by the time all this nonsense is over. Citrus, in particular, get pruned in our area in March, early March, when most of the danger of frost is past. That way he's got time to put on all those new leaves and get them really mature and sturdy before all the summer nonsense happens of 100 and 105 degree temperatures. So don't prune your citrus right now. If it's dormant, you can go for it. If your plant is not dormant, it's probably best to wait until February, late February, something like that. And again, if you've got mature plants and you're thinking that you weren't getting enough fruit or flowers and you should feed them now, you might want to rethink that. Fertilizing happens as a reward for a plant having grown. In other words, that's when it's hungry. If you feed it at the wrong time, you risk making it grow at the wrong time, and then that plant is going to cope with it in ways that you're not going to like. In other words, if you give it a synthetic fertilizer and it gets a taste of the lawn food, it's going to put on tons of green growth way too early, and it's going to freeze off with the next freeze or burn off at the wrong time. If your plant is asleep, don't feed him. When you first put these in the ground, you're more than welcome to give him some organic fertilizer, something that he can access when he starts to grow after a while. But synthetics, this time of year, would probably not be advised. After you go ahead and get your plant in the ground and you've considered maybe the paint, another great thing to consider is the liquicop, something that's going to prevent diseases, and only diseases that happen during the growing year, and your best chance of handling them are now in January, as well as doing the horticultural oil, which is going to suppress lots of overwintering eggs, particularly of aphids, and you can do that now as well. In January is a great time also to make sure that you've taken care of a lot of prevention. Make sure that your mulch is of the right depth and not next to the base of the plant, that you've got your watering out at the furthest reaches of the branches, and that you've done your dormant care. And that's usually a spray that includes liquicop and horticultural oil. When you're ready to get any of these things done and my voice starts to drift away and you can't quite remember what she said, I invite you to go to our website, idiggreenacres.com, and there's a menu bar. Hover over it until you see resources and then Learning Center. Just about everything that I spoke about here today is going to be in that Learning Center, and they're short, lovely bits. We really appreciate the chance to talk to you, and we welcome the chance to answer any questions that you might have. You can use our Facebook and you can use our website for putting questions in the comments section. And don't forget, we've also got 5 stores with lots of people who are really ready for you. Bring your questions, bring your ideas, and we're here to help.